Religious freedom extends to people of faith who give food and water to the undocumented.
And our fears are leading us to make helping another person a crime.
The American Religious Town Hall meeting is now in session.
Welcome, friends, to the American Religious Town Hall meeting, where the discussion of religious, political, and social issues is meant to promote the cause of religious freedom and to help us better understand each other. And now, here's your host and moderator, Pastor Jerry Lutz.
Thank you, and welcome to today's timely and important discussion at the American Religious Town Hall meeting. So glad you've joined us. I'd like for you to meet the panelists. Let's begin with the gentleman to my right and work our way around.
Hi, my name is Carl Troval. I'm the Richard J. Dinda Professor of Lutheran Identity and Mission at Concordia University in Austin, Texas, which is affiliated with the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod.
Hi, I'm Tony Matthews, and I'm the Senior Pastor at North Garland Baptist Fellowship in Garland, Texas.
My name is Canon John Peterson. I am an Episcopal priest, and I'm canonically resident of the Diocese of Washington.
I'm Bishop Michael Olson, and I am the Roman Catholic Bishop of the Diocese of Fort Worth, Texas.
I'm Rabbi Dan Levin. I'm the Senior Rabbi at Temple Bethel, located in Boca Raton, Florida.
And I'm Tom Plumley. I'm the Senior Minister at First Christian Church, Fort Worth, Texas. Our congregation is a part of the Christian Church Disciples of Christ.
Well, thank you, everyone, for being here today. Glad you could take time from your busy schedule. I know that you have other lives that you tend to other than just this one. So glad you could be here, and a special welcome to you today. Let's get right to our subject. The undocumented regularly die of starvation and dehydration in Arizona's Cabeza Prieta National Wildlife Refuge. According to the medical examiner of Pima County, 2,615 human remains have been recovered in the refuge from the years 2001 to 2016. In April 2018, geologist Scott Daniel Warren ran across two people in this area who, while being chased by Border Patrol agents, had lost their backpacks filled with food and water. Having personally discovered 18 bodies himself in this brutal desert, Mr. Warren decided to provide the two with food, water, shelter, and clothing. His motive? To do what he believes Jesus has literally asked him to do. Quote, "For I was hungry, and you fed me, thirsty, and you gave me to drink, an alien, and you welcomed me, naked, and you clothed me, sick, and you ministered to me," close quote. Mr. Warren was eventually arrested and charged with 2 felony counts for bringing 2 undocumented migrants to a building where they were given food, water, beds, and clean clothes. In June of 2019, jurors could not reach a verdict in this case. If convicted, he could have served up to 20 years in prison. Now federal prosecutors are seeking to try him on charges of harboring illegal aliens. Writes theologian and ethicist Dr. Miguel A. de la Torre in Review.wire News, quote, "We are a nation that has made humanitarian aid a crime and has made fidelity to the Bible a felony," close quote. In light of this statement, I'd like to ask our panelists to consider these few questions today. First of all, are there appropriate or legal limits to the exercise of love, charity, and assistance of others, in particular the needy? And if so, what might they be? A second question, according to the Supreme Court, certain businesses may, under certain conditions, refuse to serve people in the name of religious freedom. How is this case similar, and how is it different? And then finally, has the government been too aggressive in bringing to trial churches and people of faith for assisting the undocumented? We're going to go back now to those who helped to begin this program. Dr. Troval, welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
And can you tell us a little bit more on your thoughts on this subject, please?
Sure. Having lived on the border and ministered there, and having worked with people who are undocumented as well, I find this case to be profoundly troubling because it, in the United States, one of the fundamental things that we have is the ability to express and practice our faith freely. And one of the fundamental, of all the things we practice in our faith, one of the core fundamentals is to help a human being who is in dire need, to save their life. And when laws are at this juncture of actually condemning and possibly putting into prison someone who's just simply trying to provide someone with their basic needs, I find this to be, I want to say criminal, but I find it to be just a terrible, terrible thing. And I think I definitely want to separate the immigration issue from the moral point here of saving people's lives. Obviously, the immigration issue is a gigantic issue. It needs to be solved because we have people who are coming across for various reasons to the United States, and they have various needs. But one of the things is that when people are across, even as a government, we have the obligation to care for people, at least while they're being held and they are put before the proper authorities to make decisions about whether they will be returned to their country or stay for asylum or however it will look. I don't see why people of faith and the government can't cooperate on this issue because nevertheless, however it's done, these people need food, they need water, they need shelter, and they need to stay with their families.
All right, thank you very much. And then Bishop Olson, glad to have you back on the program today. Your thoughts on the subject?
Thank you. I agree with what Carl has said. I think that the nation has a responsibility and a right to sound borders, and that's for the sake of the common good, that's for the sake of peace, and it has a responsibility to, in a sense, determine anyone coming in if they are a threat, if they're hostile. But even prior to that is a basic humanity, which in the expression of religious liberty is to care for those who are sick, those who are in need, and also not to kill. Someone who's in danger of dying and can be assisted with basic needs like food and water and security, that can be met and should be met, and an obligation of just our basic humanity, but also given our tradition of the Ten Commandments and also the precepts and in the Catholic tradition as well, basic charity. And I think currently in our society, we are so driven by fear, and fear that is exacerbated by ignorance, that we are, in a sense, driving ourselves into greater and greater hostility, and the importance of coming to know our neighbor and coming to know our responsibilities just as human beings before we start listing our rights that are based in fear is essential for our well-being and our peace.
All right, thank you very much. And then Rabbi Levin, glad to have you back today on this program. Your perspective, please.
In the Torah, in the early part of the Hebrew Scriptures, there are 36 different instances when we're told that it is our obligation to love the stranger. And there are so many different teachings in Jewish tradition that remind us of our obligation to protect those who are vulnerable, who are weak. Literally, the Talmud teaches that you bring the poor into your own household. So then we have to ask ourselves a question of what does it mean where in order to prosecute the law as it's written, we have to violate the most fundamental moral truths that I think we believe in. And that leads me to believe that their problem lies with the law and not necessarily with the moral truths. And that's something that I think we need to look at. I would also add that element of fear, Bishop, that you mentioned is really challenging from a moral standpoint. At the aftermath of the shootings in El Paso, there was tremendous worries that people who were injured in that shooting might not seek medical care because of fears that their status would be discovered. And as you said, Carl, we should have different kinds of conversations about how we can fix the broken immigration system that we have in our country that's leading to all of these tragic events. But the way to solve that problem is not on the backs of people who are in the most desperate human circumstances.
All right, thank you. Now, Reverend Plumley, your perspective, please.
Thank you. If I come upon a traffic accident and see that there are plainly visible folks who are injured there, and I pause for a moment, look at them, and think, ooh, I've got to get to my meeting and move on down the road, I am breaking the law. I have a positive duty to stop and render what aid I can. I don't understand how these sorts of situations differ from that. The only thing different is that the recipient of the aid has a legal status of which I'm not aware at the time. I think that this one case that you mentioned is only one among several. In Jeff Davis County, Texas, which is way down in southwest Texas, near the Big Bend National Park, a young attorney, a young woman there, picked up some people who were trying to flag her down at the side of the road. It was a freezing cold day, and these people were ill, and they flagged her down as a last desperate effort to get some help. She picked them up, and she was flagged as someone who the federal government began an investigation on. A disciple minister, a New York clergy person, has regularly gone to the border in Texas to help migrant folks. She has become the subject of interrogation and surveillance, and she has been put on a national watch list. So this is more than just this one incident. It's a fever that is out there that can do real harm to real human beings, and oh, by the way, at the same time, refuse to allow certain people the exercise of their freedom of religion.
And this is likely why this case against Scott Warren resulted in a hung jury. The very things that we're discussing around here, we don't know exactly what they discussed, but they couldn't come to a conviction decision. That much we know. Welcome back to the program. Good to have you here today, Dr. Matthews. Your perspective, please.
Yes, this is, I just grappled with this, this particular case. When I read it, I first said it's outrageous to charge this gentleman with any kind of crime, and it led me on a different journey for myself, because the whole issue with the border and of course the laws that we have, as the bishop mentioned, every nation has its right to have borders, and my journey took me to the scripture, because as a pastor, as a citizen, I want to be able to speak to people who have who grapple with this topic and the border topic with some scriptural knowledge. And of course, we know borders are biblical. We know that it is not biblical to violate a just law to achieve a good. But at the same time, if you see someone hungry, thirsty, you got to help them. So I've struggled. And the rabbi mentioned the stranger. I studied the ger and the nahar. Those words mean foreigner, but one was, the ger had a legal status, where the nahar did not have a legal status, from my understanding. And then how does that apply to undocumented people coming over and the benefits that they have? So I struggle with the whole thing, and but I'm glad the person is not in jail. I think we need to render aid, and but at the same time, while we have laws, and how do you reconcile the two?
All right, thank you very much. Canon Peterson, your perspective, please.
Well, I'd like to ask a question. Have we totally lost our moral compass? I was hungry and you fed me. Thirsty, you gave me something to drink. An alien and you welcomed me. Where's our moral compass today? Where is our moral compass? I do not know a Jew, a Muslim, a Buddhist, or a Hindu, or an atheist who would not agree with the challenge that Jesus gives to us in this gospel. Full stop. it doesn't matter what religious tradition is. This is basically human rights. The basic core of who we are. And we don't give water. We don't take care of the alien. What about that plaque on the Statue of Liberty? Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. Send them, the homeless, the tempest-tossed, to me. I left my lamp beside the golden door. Where's our moral compass?
See, this may have been what the jury was considering, and apparently their compass was working pretty well in that jury room, at least. And Carl, going back to what you said a few moments ago, is separating humanitarianism with the law, with the border situations going on there. And you live near the border, as you say.
In a different time than now, but still, yeah.
All right. And so some other thoughts on that, teasing that apart and maintaining the humanitarian aspects, but yet, as Dr. Matthews was describing here a moment ago, to not break the law, if it's a just law, and that gets into some interesting discussion.
So if I could quote one of the Border Patrol agents in my congregation, who there was questions about people coming to our church door and us giving food to people, and the question arose, yeah, but what if they're undocumented? And I asked our Border Patrol agent in the congregation, one of number, and he said, Pastor, he said, we have an obligation to give people food and water. We have an obligation to give them their basic needs. He said, what I do on my job, I do on my job. But what I do as a human being and as a Christian here in this congregation is helping the needy. And to me, that was a clarifying moment to realize these are two issues. And this moral obligation to help people in their fundamental survival needs is primary.
Thank you. And then Rabbi had a comment to make. We'll come back to this side in a moment. Yes. Rabbi
So
Lauren.
I think that there's a difference between rendering aid to someone in desperate circumstances and the jurisprudential process as it relates to the larger efficacy of immigration law. So we're taught, al ta'mod al dam re'echa, don't stand idly by while your neighbor bleeds. But if you look also at the laws that are in tradition that say, let's say somebody was fleeing because they had killed somebody and they were allowed to go to a city of refuge so that there could be a jurisprudential process that would render justice. But that person would be safe in their body while that process was being rendered. And I think that's, to me, the dividing line. We can have a longer conversation about the immigration laws, but we need to figure out how we can prosecute those laws without causing harm to life and limb for desperate people.
Thank you for that clarification. And then, Bishop Olson, you're first then.
Just to follow up on that exactly is that it seems like sometimes in our culture, in our society, there's something inherent in it that makes us try to treat people as problems. In other words, that they're an inconvenience. So it's sort of like, we'll just either give them water and let them go on their way, or stop them totally. And it points to an extreme. And I think to the rabbi's point, especially, is to start with first things first, basic survival so that they can be healthy, to adjudicate the prudential process as well. So things like human trafficking. I mean, just to give somebody food and water on their way, we don't know if there is human trafficking, which is also a very major moral issue that's involved in this too. But if we stop, if we make a basic human response, if we discourage people or even prohibit people from doing that, we're never going to get to the jurisprudential issues that are going to resolve and that can bring us some peace.
All right, Dr. Matthews, I had referenced you a moment ago, so I'll come back to you.
And just for, there's so many people out there who will, let me just say this, there's a Catholic, David Armstrong, and he offers a reductio ad absurdum, a satire, and he uses Matthew 25, and he says that if Jesus favored illegal immigration, he would have to rewrite it, and it would read something like, for I was hungry and broke into your house and demanded that you give me food. I was thirsty and broke into your house and demanded that you give me drink. I was a stranger and forced my way into your house against your will, and you welcomed me. So there's a plethora of folks out there who grapple with the illegal immigration versus helping and assisting people who are already here. So it's just something we just grapple with. And I think we just should help everybody as much as we can, but at the same time, we have to obey just laws.
All right, thank you. Reverend Plumley, we have about 30 seconds left.
Sure. I just wanted to bring up a slogan of a friend of mine, Robin Hoover, who a couple of decades ago started an outfit on the border in Arizona called Humane Borders. And they go out into the desert and have water stations, and then have to keep going back and forth and filling them up. We took our kids there for a mission trip one time. Their slogan is, let's just take death out of the equation.
And that's all the time we've got. We'll end on that point for now. But we are going to come back in a few moments for the summary statements. Before that, there's an important announcement I'd like for you to stand by to listen to. We'll be back in just a few moments.
Thank you, Pastor Lutz. We hope you are enjoying today's program. If you would like to learn more about the American Religious Town Hall, please visit our website at americanreligious.org. That's americanreligious.org. There you can read about the mission and history of the program, learn about the Town Hall estates, and view past programs by clicking the appropriate menu buttons. Each week, Pastor Lutz looks forward to receiving your letters. You may write to him at the address shown on your screen. Send your letters to Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. That's Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. Thank you for writing, and thank you for watching. And now, back to you, Pastor Lutz, and today's closing statements.
Thank you, Mark, and welcome back. So glad you've stood by for the rest of the program, because we do have summary statements. Before that, however, I will also encourage you to go to the website. You can find some interesting things out there about the Town Hall Estates. You want to learn about this wonderful organization and the services they provide to our communities. And then also look at some of those past programs that are archived there for you. Let's begin with our summary statements with Dr. Trovall. You're first.
Religious freedom does extend to people of faith who give water and food to the undocumented. I understand how this can be complicated. I remember in my early ministry, there was someone who didn't have a place to stay, and I ended up transporting them to the local hotel and paid their room, and found out from my supervising pastor. He said, "You know, you broke the law in a pretty serious way." And all I was doing was just trying to be helpful to someone to have a place to stay. So good, honest people can be caught in this terrible, terrible trap, just trying to do what they believe to be the right thing based on their faith.
All right, thank you very much. Ken Peterson, your summation, please.
Yes, I really agree with the concerns that Carl just raised here, because, but I think that there has to be a point in which one has to reach out to the thirsty, to the hungry. I mean, and yes, there might be consequences to pay for, but I think that that's from our Judeo-Christian tradition, you know, that's the cost that we pay then to show that humanity. I also want to say one other thing, and this is not something that we have time to discuss today, but I think that we have to face the fact that the United States has a pretty dismal record when it comes to immigration and how we've treated immigrants back, particularly in the 19th century, and as late as the Japanese internment camps. And I think that, you know, I think this is something we need to discuss as well.
All right, thank you. And now, Rabbi Levin, your summation, please.
I think there always needs to be a balance that's struck between the imposition of justice and the rendering of compassion. And I don't want to avoid the idea of the importance of rendering justice. But at the same time, it is crucial, as Bishop reminded us, that people are not problems. People are holy instruments created in the image of God. And I think we have to remember that when we talk about the undocumented, or we talk about asylum seekers, that there are individuals with life stories, human beings on the other side of those cards. And we can't let go of that human holiness as we wrestle with these complicated issues.
All right, thank you very much. And now, Reverend Plumley, your summation.
Thank you. It is unique, and it's unfair to yoke natural human compassion to political wrangling, and that's too often what we're doing these days. I would just like to quote the Dallas Morning News editorial board, who said in regard to this case, the particular loyalties and conflicts of our country in this moment will not last forever, but our law will always stem from the respect for human life which defined our founding.
All right, thank you, Bishop Olson.
The topic of our show really underscores a point that religious liberty is a broader issue than just simply a freedom to worship. It's necessary for human dignity and for human flourishing, for peace and for justice. Likewise, we encounter the divine in the humanity of another person, which is necessary for our human community.
And thank you very much and for your participation today. Now, Dr. Matthews, your summation, please.
Yes, I just think that we should do everything we can do not to break just laws, and do everything we can do to offer compassion and assistance to people who are in need across the world. And that's a balance that we just have to have.
All right, thank you very much. And I do want to commend you today for threading the needle. I know that this has been a difficult subject, and perhaps for our viewers, they're wrestling and struggling with the same issues that we're discussing around this table. And who knows what that jury was talking about. Apparently, they couldn't come to the conclusion that some hoped they would, and others were hoping they would not. And so that's where we are in today's debate, in our discussion. So thank you so much for giving your time and energy and your thoughts into this. And we hope that this has stimulated some thoughts at home. Have some discussions about this with your priests, your rabbis, your pastors, whoever it is that you believe in your church or your place of worship, in your synagogue, wherever you are, to have that conversation. Information is what clarifies the confusion. Facts clarify confusion. To get to the heart of the matter, I think, is what the goal is. And if we can do that together, perhaps we would have a better understanding of each other. And that is really what this program is about, to bring different points of view to the table, to have these kinds of discussions. And that's what I appreciate about the American Religious Town Hall. But for now, we're going to say that the charter of the American Religious Town Hall provides that Roman Catholics, Protestants, Jews, and educators, and others may appear on this program and can declare their beliefs without hesitancy. And the rest of the members of the panel will uphold and guarantee that American right to all who will appear, irrespective of race or creed, so that the rest of the world can see that here in America, we believe in civil and religious freedom, not only in theory, but in reality. And so now, friends, until next week at the same time and over this very same channel, or however you tuned in today, the American Religious Town Hall meeting stands adjourned. And may the God of all of us bless all of you.